The word shutdown has people across the country buzzing, and social media is no exception. From worried workers to everyday folks wondering what it means for their wallets, the reactions online are intense, emotional, and often hilarious. In today's video, we've gathered some of the most eye-opening clips of people reacting in real time to the news of a possible government shutdown. These voices capture the uncertainty and frustration many feel when politics hit too close to home. Whether you've been following every headline or just hearing about it for the first time, this compilation shows how social media has become the ultimate stage for people to vent, joke, and make sense of the chaos.
Breaking news, the government shutdown is probably going to take place at 12:01 a.m. tonight, Tuesday night, which is on Wednesday morning, October 1st. Donald Trump had a meeting with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, with John Thune and Mike Johnson yesterday, and it appeared that no side was willing to give. And on the Democrat side, which I agree with, they are trying to get the subsidies back in for the Affordable Care Act, which impact 22 million people in the United States. They're trying to restore cuts from Medicaid that impact millions and millions more to protect the health of American people. That would be making America great again. That would be making America first again. But that does not work with the Republicans' budget, where they want to give billions and billions of tax cuts to the rich. And then you see the fake AI generated post that Trump made of Schumer and of Jeffries. And again, Trump's not interested in working with anybody. He's just interested in trying to blame anybody. Listen, here's the deal. Under the Republicans, they need to keep MAGA bent out of shape. They need to keep them upset, which is what they do. They keep them worked up. They want to keep us divided. And they know what they're saying. For example, J.D. Vance makes the comment, oh, all these thousands of undocumented people are getting Medicaid. No, they're not. You have to be a U.S. citizen to get Medicaid. Just completely false. One false statement after another false statement. The news media never correct them. It's become the norm. And MAGA believes whatever they say is true, no matter how false or incorrect it is. So here we have it. Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, stand your ground. Do not give and cave on the health care. That's the one thing. They need to work together, and it's time the country starts working together, Democrats and Republicans. Now, I worked for United States Senator John P. East, a Republican, 1980 to 86. And in the 80s, the Democrats and Republicans had their philosophical disagreements, but they could sit down, they could work things out, and they could solve problems. Unlike now. Trump only wants to divide, so does J.D. Vance. They don't want to bring people together. You can see after what happened to CK, how all the false statements they made about the liberal left and this, that, and the other, on and on and on. They don't want to work together. They win from division. They win from division, which is why they want us to stay divided. Love you for my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my kookas, my burn their light bulb. What is your opinion on the shutdown? Shutdown or not? And again, for those that think it's great in general it's not great. It's only a bargaining tool right now to try to get these healthcare subsidies and Medicaid changes back in. Love to hear from you.
But I don't see any way around it. Tonight at 12:01, the government is going to shut down. So let's talk about what that means for you and dispel some rumors as well. So the first thing is things that are called essential services will keep going. Those are things like air traffic control, border security. Social security checks will still get mailed or direct deposited. The mail will still be delivered, but millions of federal workers and contractors stop getting paid. Right? Some are furloughed or kind of laid off until the continuing resolution gets passed. Some and most will have to work without pay until Congress acts, right? And then they'll get all their back pay. So what you'll start to feel at first are delays, right? Small business loans will start to stall. National parks will close. Airports normally get slower because TSA and air traffic controllers are working on pay. And again, they're essential workers. They'll get it back paid, but at this point they're not. So they are essentially working without pay. You know, IRS support lines from their call centers coming. Really, you start to hear delays. Now, SNAP and Medicare benefits, they'll keep running, but as things kind of drag on, families will and can start to feel the pressure of some of those delays. So economically, shutdowns normally shave billions off of GDP. Like, it's not good for the economy. Now, most of the time it does bounce back when workers get their back pay, but you know, there's still things like, you know, canceled trips and missed mortgage payments that happen with this, right? Small business, they're losing deals. all that money's gone. Like you're not going to get that stuff back. So again, with federal employees, they can usually get back paid. Contractors don't, right? So that hits a lot of economies around bases and kind of government hubs the hardest. So depending on how long these last, the economic impact can be massive or it can be very minimal, right? A couple days, everything is kind of fine. Now, Donald Trump's been talking about permanently furloughing some of these employees if there is a shutdown. So we'll see how this plays out. But remember, a lot of the essential services that you need, right, will continue. It's more difficult, I think, on government workers. But most of those services will continue. Those employees will get back pay. So a lot of the times this is nothing, but as it goes and drags, and these guys seem like they're really dug in, this could be a real big economic factor going into the midterms next year.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah.
Do you think this government shutdown is actually going to happen?
I'm a little skeptical about it, but I'm prepared to be pleasantly surprised if it does.
Why is that?
Well, two main reasons, right? One is that I don't have a lot of faith in the Democratic leadership having a spine right now, just based on their recent activity fighting back against the Trump administration. And the other is basically precedent, right? It feels like, at least, we've had shutdown threats almost every year for the last 8 years or so, at least. And pretty much every time there is a shutdown threat, it seems like there's going to be a shutdown until the 11th hour. And then, shortly before midnight, all the parties come to an agreement and the government is functioning again, right? To be fair to the Democrats, that is usually the Republicans threatening to shut down the government, not the Democrats. Nonetheless, we have seen a lot of potential shutdowns that do get averted at the last minute. And then you combine that with the Democratic Party just being generally spineless against Trump and not doing anything to actually strongly resist him or to listen to their own base. We just look at, for example, how Mamdani is being supported in New York by the Democratic Party, which is to say he's not. And we've had a lot of Democratic senators vote yes on really dubious legislation that has been passed by the Republicans. So I don't have a lot of faith in corporate Democrats as a whole. The only shred of hope that I do have that a shutdown will actually happen is that during the last Trump administration from 2018 to 2019, there was a government shutdown that was pushed by the Democrats, and it was actually the longest shutdown in U.S. history of 35 days. So they did it then. I'm willing to believe that they'll do it again. We'll see what happens tomorrow night.
It sounds like you want the government to shut down.
Yeah, I mean, the Trump administration is using the government as a tool of fascism right now. And anything that prevents it from doing that or even slows it down is going to be a good thing, right? The shutdown is essentially a form of protest by the Democratic representatives if it does happen. And I think that is a very important protest for them to do. That being said, I recognize that the shutdown harms a lot of people, right? Federal workers to start with, and then everybody that needs to access the services. So I don't say that lightly, but given that I'm also calling for a national general strike, I do think it is something that would be effective at slowing down the Trump administration and what they're trying to do with the U.S.
The U.S. federal government is potentially going to shut down as the Republicans, who, again, control all three branches of government, are blaming the Democrats. Now, don't get me wrong. I love blaming the Democrats too. It's a national pastime. But you're in control of the entire fucking government. Essentially, the budget is about to run out and Congress needs to pass a budget. And so Republicans have made a bill to keep the government open, but it was crafted entirely by them and doesn't include anything for the Democrats. And Democrats are like, we want concessions. And Republicans are like, no. Republicans need 60 votes in the Senate for this to pass, and they don't have 60 votes because they don't have 60 senators. So they're essentially saying, we demand that you capitulate to a one-sided piece of legislation, and if you don't, we're going to blame you for it. This is not unusual. This is usually just like if there is a party that's fully in power, they do this. Like they blame the party that's the minority party for being obstructionist. In reality, this is in theory supposed to be where bipartisanship comes into effect, but bipartisanship doesn't exist. And so instead, we are all just wondering what the fuck's going to happen tomorrow. So if it does go through, which at time of recording, it's very likely, it very well could change by tonight, but who knows? Here's what to expect. A lot of government services will stop. Basically, anything that's not considered essential will stop. If you depend on a specific government service and you are concerned about it being halted, I recommend searching to see if that is considered essential or not. Some government employees are going to be essentially just put on leave. Some government employees are going to have to continue to work without pay and get back pay later. But mostly, it's just going to be very expensive. Like, it's not cheaper to shut down. because all of the problems that accrue while we're shut down need to be handled, and the back pay, and it's a mess. The other thing that we're watching right now is that Trump is seemingly positioning a threat to fire a ton of federal employees as leverage against the Democrats. Like, he has instructed his people to essentially draft up plans to fire mass numbers of federal employees if the government does shut down, which essentially is just Trump using American workers' livelihood as a bargaining chip against the Democrats to ensure that the Democrats vote for a bill that is deeply unliked by the American people. Bipartisanship in action. And on the topic of firing a ton of federal employees, they already did that. And it's been bad. Elon Musk's Doge efforts to fire a ton of government employees resulted in the government having to rehire a bunch of them, essentially creating a 7-month-long taxpayer-funded paid vacation for the people that Doge claims they fired. At least for a good portion of them, because they have to bring people back in because they fired too many people and now they can't function properly. And they're like, whoops, how could nobody have seen this coming?
Sup, I know we're all talking about Bad Bunny. Rightfully so, because to quote J-Lo, mi gente latina. Oh, we have to talk about something else that's happening. I feel like a lot of Americans aren't actually attuned to the fact that we are headed for a government shutdown. You're like, oh my gosh, doesn't the government threaten to shut down and run out of funds all the time? Yeah. It does. Feels like Groundhog Day, and it's kind of easy to ignore it, but here's what's happening. Donald Jr. Cheeseburger and the Republicans are refusing to negotiate with the Democrats. As you know, the Republicans have control of Washington. Boo. Well, that means that they're responsible for keeping the government open. It's like when the worst person you know has the aux and is controlling the vibes. So that's one. Two, but they could walk back these cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, or they can double down when they redo this budget. And right now, Speaker Johnson, monotone guy whose face doesn't move, fierce guardian of the Epstein files, probably his grinder handle. He canceled votes on Monday and Tuesday because he refused to negotiate, which means that House Republicans are going to be home when the government shutdown begins. Oh, what's up? Oh, I was just waiting for the outrage from the people who said they were cutting waste, fraud, and abuse to come to the front. Because nothing says making America great again than raising costs for working families. Like, how do I know all this information? Well, because when you talk a lot of crap on the internet artfully, you get invited to some meetings and some email lists. So I'm getting some information confirming that the Democrats are working to keep the government open, while Republicans, while they might be taking time off work, are putting in their effort to take away America's healthcare, driving us to a government shutdown. Here's a visual of like what's been happening the last 9 months. This isn't by accident. Pause to read. Continue to pause to read, vibes. And dude, I'm a comedian. I wish I could just be silly goose. I care about this because healthcare is already expensive. And no matter where you are in the country, this matters. These cuts go through, healthcare costs are going to go for everyone. It's giving tax cuts for billionaires and higher costs for working people. Anyway, I'll keep you updated.
If there's a government shutdown today, I want you all to remember this. Republicans control the House, Republicans control the Senate, and Republicans control the presidency. If the government shuts down, it's 100% on them. They have the numbers, they have the votes to avoid a shutdown. And the reason why Democrats aren't going to vote with them is because Democrats want to save tens of millions of people from being kicked off health care. And Republicans don't have the numbers because there's a couple of Republicans who are going to hold out because they know that their constituents are going to not have health care because of this big, stupid, beautiful, dumbass bill that Trump's trying to pass. Wondering when the last government shutdown was? 2018, Trump lasted 3 days. Another 2018 lasted several hours. And 2019 lasted 35 days, costing $3 billion with a B dollars. Yep. Keep blaming Democrats. Here's some common sense from Ron Philip Pikowski from the Midas Touch. Couldn't Trump just use the $17 trillion he said he got from all these countries' tariffs to fund the government? Where is that money, Trumpy? Where is it? So if you hear or see a MAGA Republican post that it's the Democrats' fault today, remember this. Republicans control every branch of government. They have the numbers and they have enough votes to pass their bill. It's because there's a couple Republican holdouts who are using some common sense and saying we don't want our people, tens of millions of people, to be kicked off of their health care. You see a MAGA say Democrats are voting for illegal immigrants to have health care? That's simply not true. Illegal immigrants do not get free health care in the United States. Period. That's the truth. You can easily verify that. You can easily look it up. Don't let these MAGA scumbags lie to you. And one more thing. You know who gets paid during a government shutdown? Not active military. No, not your local mailman. Nope. Senators, congressmen, they get paid. They still get paid during a government shutdown, which is total bullshit. But that's the rules, I guess. Once again, they control the House, they control the Senate, they control the presidency. Republicans have enough votes. Republicans need Democrats to vote with them because there's some Republicans who just said we're not voting for this bill, and they're going to blame Democrats. It's not Democrats' fault. Democrats have zero absolutely zero chance, zero say in this vote because Republicans control every branch of government right now. Don't let MAGAs lie to you.
Anti-leftist, anti-Democrat propaganda is now being pushed at the Housing and Urban Development. Let me show you what I mean. This popped up today on their website. If you go to the website, this shows up first. The radical left are going to shut down the government, inflict massive pain. You can read it for yourself. If you X out or you hit OK, well then this pops up. The same exact thing, but it's in a banner that scrolls with you, so it covers a portion of the page until you get about maybe a quarter of the way down, and then it rolls up. But over at HUD, they're testing out this message. They're testing out whether or not they can push propaganda out to the public and nobody notices. And HUD's the perfect place because nobody really ever goes to the HUD website other than maybe some workers that need to utilize the assets there. So if they can push it there and nobody makes a stink about it, and they do it when Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth are meeting with all the military leaders, which is what the media has been talking about on and off for the last week, well, then they can push it elsewhere. And this is what the administration's doing. As you can see from that message, they're attempting to blame the left for their failures. The White House is controlled by Republicans. The House of Representatives is controlled by Republicans. The Senate is controlled by Republicans. And they only had to convince 7 notoriously flaky Democrats to join them on a clean continuing resolution through November 20th. And they couldn't do so. Why? Because they didn't want to. So when the government shuts down at midnight, remember, Republicans wanted this, and they want the pain that's coming from it because they have a master plan that they're following, and that'll be for a different video sometime today.
Here's what you need to know today, September 30th. Right now, Hegseth and Trumpolina are addressing admirals and generals on the warrior ethos, while career military officials are sounding the alarm over Hegseth's leadership and the direction of the Department of Defense, or war, as he wants to call it now. Now, these career military officials are not only alarmed that we announced this entire meeting to the world, yeah, everybody in the same place at the same time. Smart to announce that, guys. They're really concerned about our policy towards other countries, not just homeland readiness, but what about our stance on China? Russia, they're continuing to escalate in Central and Eastern Europe. They're continuing to push the bounds of what NATO will and will not accept as far as incursions into airspace, as an example. In addition to that, we are still careening towards a government shutdown at midnight tonight. Yep, that's today. That's today. Now, could a last-minute deal be struck? I guess so. But guys, the key point that the Democrats are trying to negotiate or get into this bill are subsidies for healthcare, making health insurance affordable. And Republicans are like, yeah, we'll debate that, but we can't debate that right now. We need more time for that. So it's incredibly unlikely that a deal is going to be reached before midnight tonight. And what that's going to mean is that thousands upon thousands of employees are either going to be furloughed or fired. Our military is not going to get paid, although essential services like Social Security, Medicare benefits, as well as visas and passports will still continue to be issued. But guys, these employees that work for us, the government, they're not going to be paid. And we don't know how long this is going to go on. And they're pegging this as the Democratic shutdown when Republicans control all 3 branches of government. Yeah, think about that.
The government is likely to shut down tonight. If that shutdown lasts more than 60 days, we could be looking at a completely different country. This is not a temporary pause. This is not business as usual. This is a chance for the Republican Party to remake America in their image. We're talking about 1 million federal employees fired, the filibuster eliminated in the Senate, and the Republicans and the president using this moment to cement one-party rule in this country. Nationwide abortion ban, eliminate government agencies, and make it the executor closer to a king than a president, while we're all just trying to survive day to day. This shutdown does not have to happen. If the president and the Republicans simply allow the Democrats, who represent half of this country, to participate in government, the government would stay open. But that's not their goal. This isn't about fixing the government. This is about destroying it. And the longer this shutdown drags on, the more the Republicans and the president will own it.
Well, Vice President J.D. Vance just stated it looks like we are indeed headed towards a government shutdown. Now, the Trump administration is obviously blaming this on the Democrats and liberals. But fact is, until some sort of deal is negotiated, This shutdown will mean that all federal employees will be working without a paycheck. This also includes ICE. Oh no, surely the Democrats would not want ICE and immigration officials rounding folks up all over this country to be faced with financial hardship. No way the Democrats would want that, right? What say you?
There's a threat of a government shutdown if Congress cannot agree today on September 30th whether or not to continue funding the government. And there are a lot of effects of this. I've talked about, the discussions going on with the Affordable Care Act subsidies. I've talked about some of the effects of Medicaid funding. I've also made several videos in the past about past government shutdowns because we seem to keep doing this. But there's one effect that I don't hear a whole lot of people talk about, and that is the potential impact to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that is a suspension of all government labor data operations, including the monthly jobs report that's supposed to come out Friday, as well as some inflation figures that were expected to come out in mid-October. Now, as an economist, I'm not going to go into the details of the political strategy or whether or not it's a good idea for the Republicans or the Democrats to have a government shutdown. That is outside of my field of expertise, although I have my own personal opinions about it. However, for the purposes of this video, I want to specifically talk about the Department of Labor's contingency plan, which was released today on September 30th, where they announced that not only would new data on the economy not be released, right, the jobs report and all of that information we get from the Department of Labor, but also they would not be working towards estimating any of the new estimates that would be able to determine the health of our economy with things like the CPI, the PPI, the inflation indicators. There were also announcements from the Department of Commerce that stated that this similarly would have an impact on the Census Bureau as well as the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which essentially means, right, we would be flying blind into an economic downturn. Now, I know I've gotten a lot of comments in my videos stating that we can't even trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Department of Labor numbers because of the firing of Dr. Erica McEntipher, who was the former chief of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. However, the person who the president has nominated as the chief has not been appointed yet, right? The Senate has not approved their confirmation. Currently, the acting head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics is William Witatrosky. He's a career economist in the Bureau, and most economists that I've spoken to who are labor economists trust his estimates. So that is not necessarily the issue in this particular case. Now, I think it's important to note also that the report is not just generated by the Commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There are dozens of staff economists that are in charge of collecting the data and calculating these numbers, which means there are a lot of safeguards within the Bureau of Labor Statistics currently as it exists right now that would prevent something like manipulating the numbers and changing the data so that it's not accurate. I'm just speaking for right now on September 30th. I'm not talking about, subsequent reports. As we state right now, the numbers, most economists agree, the numbers are largely reliable. The issue is that we would not be getting any numbers at all. As the economy has started to slow down, as unemployment has started to increase, we cannot determine the health of the economy without the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers. And yes, there are other estimates from other private data aggregators that we could rely on in this case. And if we're being honest, a lot of these private data aggregators rely on the government data that the Bureau of Labor Statistics collects. So they would also be affected. But flying blind in a heavy fog or not having any data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not going to make any sort of determination of where we're at economically any easier. Now, the one bit of good news is that because the jobs report, right, is supposed to come out in 4 days on October 3rd, he asked me what day it was October 3rd, because that is supposed to come out, we should already have the data and the results mostly in-house. This is the time where a lot of people at the Bureau of Labor Statistics are simply reviewing the report, cleaning it up, and just confirming their estimates. So if the government is expected to, be funded in the next couple of days, the labor jobs report should not be delayed all that much. However, if the shutdown lasts for a couple of weeks, it could delay that data collection for October jobs report or November's jobs report. So this is something that we just need to keep in mind and keep aware of, especially because the Fed, the Federal Reserve, the organization that determines interest rates, is meeting at the end of October. And they are very much relying on the unemployment numbers as well as the inflation numbers to be able to determine how to handle interest rates. Very exciting times in the economy right now. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what happens. But for us and for the Federal Reserve setting interest rates that rely very heavily on this economic data, the potential lapse in information to be able to judge the health of the economy is frankly concerning. And that's all I got. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, so the government could shut down by tomorrow? Yep, Mr. Art of the Deal. Government's probably going to shut down tomorrow. But the Republicans are in charge of the House and the Senate. Doesn't matter. You need to have 60 votes in the Senate to pass, and right now there's only 53 Republicans, so you would need 7 Democrats, and they're pretty hard-lined right now. Why would those evil Democrats do this? They just want to fund Medicaid to the end of the year. That's it. But for some reason, Mike Johnson doesn't want to play ball. Why would he not want to fund Medicaid? Isn't that, like, good for people, like healthcare? Maybe forget that he's a Republican and a bootlicker for Trump, so he's an asshole. Hold up, wait a minute. Trump could sign an executive order. No, he can't. This is a spending bill. He can't do that. Executive orders have nothing to do with that. So what does this mean if we have a government shutdown? That means a lot of government employees that are considered non-essential aren't going to get paid for a really long time until they eventually do pass the spending bill. Oh, well, that kind of sucks. Yeah, totally. Tell you what, though, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to my CPA next year, and for every day the government shut down, I'm not paying taxes. What? Why would my tax dollars go to the government when they aren't even doing their job, right? That makes no sense. So I'm going to talk to my CPA and say, hey, look, the government was shut down for 35 days, and I would like to not pay taxes for those 35 days because it didn't do anything for me. I think you could do that, though. Bro, World War III might happen. I'm not even concerned at this point.
At midnight, October 1st, the U.S. government faces a shutdown, and with it, a major blow to cybersecurity. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA, loses 65% of its workforce overnight. Only a third of America's cyber defenders remain. That means fewer analysts tracking threats, halted vulnerability scans, slower incident response, and critical training programs frozen. The Pentagon keeps its active duty cyber operators on the job, but 334,000 civilian staff face furloughs. Resources are thin, morale tanks, and operation does slow. At the very same time, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015 expires. That law gave companies liability protections to share cyber threat data with the government. Without it, lawyers are already warning clients to stop sharing. The result, government and private sectors are left behind just as adversaries are most active. Groups like China's Volt Typhoon, already inside U.S. infrastructure, gain an opening to expand footholds, move laterally, and prepare for future disruptions. Meanwhile, ongoing attacks like the exploitation of the Cisco devices and intrusions into telecom networks become harder to contain with fewer defenders. Experts call this a perfect storm, a shutdown, a collapse in information sharing, and foreign adversaries ready to strike. Unless Congress restores funding and extends protections, America's critical infrastructure becomes a wide open target.
The occupant of the White House and his regime are refusing to negotiate on the government shutdown, and they're drawing up plans for not just closing down the government, but for mass firings. And I believe, and this is just my opinion, that shutting down the government or using the government shutdown as a means to fire more federal employees was the plan all along. It's straight out of their Project 2025 playbook.
The government is going to shut down in less than 24 hours. Let's talk about what that means for you, your family, and your friends. Funding for the United States government will effectively run out tomorrow, Tuesday, September 30th at midnight. This is due to the fact that Republicans, who need 60 votes in order to pass a continuing resolution to continue funding the government, need 7 Democratic votes. What's even more problematic is that Republicans have not asked for Democratic help or even asked Democrats what they would like to see in a bill. Rather, they want to strong-arm them and force them into voting against their own party ideals. As a matter of fact, last week, congressional leadership, specifically on the Democratic side, had asked President Trump for a meeting to sit down and negotiate in a bipartisan manner. Specifically, Democrats are wanting to re-enshrine and protect healthcare rates and insurance for individuals who lost their healthcare protections after the Republicans shoved through their one big beautiful bill that effectively stripped healthcare insurance for 12 million Americans. Like I had mentioned earlier, President Trump initially accepted a meeting with Democratic congressional leadership, but then later reversed this decision so that he did not want to meet with, quote, radical left lunatics. He then reversed this decision this past weekend and agreed to a meeting with both Democratic and Republican leadership today, Monday, September 29th. And to make this even more tumultuous, the Republicans are playing the blame game and blaming this shutdown on Democrats. However, let's make something very clear. Republicans currently control all three branches of government. They control the executive branch by way of the president, who is a Republican. They also control the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative leaning. And then finally, they also control the legislative branch. They have a majority in both the House and the Senate. Now, I want to mention here that the vote threshold for getting through a continuing resolution or a funding mechanism is 60 votes. Democrats have 47 and Republicans have 53, which means that they will need 7 Democrats to vote with them. This is crucial as Democrats are saying that they're not going to budge until some of their demands are included in a continuing resolution, as they were not at all consulted whenever the Republicans pushed through the One Big Beautiful Bill, and they want to make sure that their constituents still get access to good and cheap and affordable health care.
It's highly likely the government is going to shut down on Wednesday. How is this going to affect you? What's going to remain open? What's going to be closed? If you receive any type of funding whatsoever from the government, or if you use governmental services in any way, whether it's Social Security, SNAP, rental assistance, small business, you're a vet, whether you go to the post office, this video is for you. I will go through the list of what's open and what could be closed or most likely will be paused if this government shuts down on Wednesday. Now, first of all, congressional lawmakers did meet with Trump earlier tonight in the Oval Office. They tried to come up with a plan to avoid the government shutdown. They failed. They did not come up with a plan. What is happening is that the Trump administration wants new spending to be approved. One of those things is that they want tens of millions of dollars for lawmakers' security. So if that's not approved, well, then the government shuts down. Will this be a partial or a full shutdown? We don't know. Probably a partial, but anything can happen between now and Wednesday as well. But if they don't come up with a plan and this money does not get approved by midnight on Tuesday, at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday, October 1st, the government will shut down. Now let's get into the list of what will be open and what will be closed. Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid will remain open. You will still be able to use your health insurance and receive your payments. This is because they are not funded through the Treasury Department. Anything that is funded through the Treasury Department, there's going to be problems with. But these programs are funded through permanent appropriations, okay? Now, the post office is privately funded. They'll remain open. Anything that has to do with the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security, like immigration, border patrol, security activities, all of those things will remain open and active. Why? Because the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security they have tons of money. You know, they were appropriated a ton of funding immediately in July. Immediately they got that funding. Veterans Affairs, veterans hospitals, clinics, they will all remain open. Now, as far as Social Security, the only thing that you're going to see a problem with is with the new benefit verification, as well as if you need a new Social Security card. That might be paused or delayed. WIC and SNAP. Those two programs, they have to use whatever money they have left, which is not a lot. And once they run out of that money, they're not going to get new funding unless the government does not shut down and funding is dispersed. So WIC and SNAP will be affected if the government shuts down. Now, if you extended your taxes, the taxes will still be due on October 15th. That will not be affected. Now, due to the furloughs that are going to occur with federal employees, who, by the way, will go without pay if there's a government shutdown, there will be delayed services with the IRS and Small Business Administration as well. Individuals who will be hit really hard are small business owners. It's always the private sector who's hit hardest in these government shutdowns. Now, housing. Any housing programs, rental assistance, Section 8, any type of loans, even housing loans, all of those programs will be affected. There will be a delay in that. If you're looking to get a passport, the passport offices will remain open. You will still be able to obtain and purchase a passport or get a passport renewed, whatever it is that you need to do there. Now, as far as any type of student loans, Pell Grants, FAFSA, all of those programs will continue, but only until the funds run out. So if this shutdown is prolonged, Colleges, universities, and school districts throughout the country who receive federal funding will be affected, and they won't receive that funding. So primarily, those are the things that are going to be open and closed and affected as far as if there is a government shutdown on Wednesday, which it does look as though that is what's going to happen. Now, this will be the third government shutdown under Trump if this occurs. Fox News reports that there have been 10 government shutdowns since 1980. Interestingly enough, though, CBS News reported that there have been 14 government shutdowns since 1980. But nonetheless, the government shutdowns cost the taxpayers money. Okay? Don't be fooled. I will keep you updated on this for sure. Please like, follow, and share so that I can continue to provide you with content, and I appreciate you being here.
Are we really going to call this what this is? Chuck Schumer and all you crazy liberals? Let's call it what it is. You're holding the government ransom for illegal immigrants. Forget the people who elected you. Forget the Constitution in which you're supposed to uphold. You want more money to pay for illegal immigrants to have medical insurance. But what about American citizens who can't afford medical insurance? What about Americans? What about us? You said you were for the people. I mean, I know better. But the people that voted for you, the lost liberal constituency that you have, a government shutdown? Why? So that you can support your new voter base, illegal immigrants. That's all it is. You are holding the government and the American people ransom. And it's time for your people to realize that and wake up. Put an end to this. Vote these people out. They've been in office for decades, and they have not done anything for you but open the borders.
And since the Democrats are so shitty at explaining why the government is being threatened to shut down, I'm going to clarify for you. Do you remember a few months ago when the big, beautiful bill was passed? It was over 1,000 pages. A lot of the senators did not read the bill. It went from the House to the Senate, back to the House, and back to the Senate. And in that, they cut $1 trillion in Medicaid. Also, that means rural hospitals will close, healthcare workers will be laid off, and many more other bad things. The second part of that was the Obamacare, which is Affordable Care Act. 28 million Americans use that link to get health insurance. So it's like a government credit, a subsidy. So depending on how much you make, maybe you make $15,000 a year, maybe you pay $30 and the government pays $400, and that's how that works. You lose your job, you're in between jobs, you're self-employed, you own a small business, you're right before Medicare. So many things, 28 million Americans. So the Democrats want that back on the table. Republicans control the House, the Senate, the White House, and the Supreme Court. And Trump says, no, I will not meet with you. Democrats say, if you don't address this, we are going to shut down the government. I'm leaving you a trail of breadcrumbs here. Please do your own research. This is extremely important. Rural hospitals have already started to close. If you have a question, I have done so many videos on the big, beautiful bill. As a Democrat, somebody who does not agree with dictatorship, shut the government down. I have seen many federal employees who have been thrown out like trash this year and threatened about 50 times with losing their job. Donald Trump has threatened to fire people over this as a strong arm tool. Drop your comments below.
Tonight at midnight, Trump is shutting down the government. And yes, I said Donald Trump is shutting down the government. Why? Because he had no problem saying when the government was shut down during the Obama administration that Obama was shutting down the government because Obama was in control. Donald Trump is in control. Donald Trump has a Republican Senate. Donald Trump has a Republican House of Representatives. Donald Trump has his administration at the White House. And the talking points that the Republicans are putting forward is that Democrats want to give money to illegals and transgender people, which is just a blatant bullshit lie. What Democrats are actually doing is they're trying to push for an extension for the Medicare and Medicaid premiums to not skyrocket, because some of us actually give a shit about people having access to affordable health care. Now, if you know someone on Medicare or Medicaid, then you should also be happy that the Democrats are putting up a fight for this.
Are we really going to call this what this is? Chuck Schumer and all you crazy liberals? Let's call it what it is. You're holding the government ransom for illegal immigrants. Forget the people who elected you. Forget the Constitution in which you're supposed to uphold. You want more money to pay for illegal immigrants to have medical insurance. But what about American citizens who can't afford medical insurance? What about Americans? What about us? You said you were for the people. I mean, I know better, but the people that voted for you, the lost liberal constituency that you have, a government shutdown? Why? So that you can support your new voter base, illegal immigrants. That's all it is. You are holding the government and the American people ransom. And it's time for your people to realize that and wake up. Put an end to this. Vote these people out. They've been in office for decades, and they have not done anything for you but open the borders.
Democrats are going to end up taking the blame for this government shutdown because Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are piss poor communicators. Let me just break it down for you guys and give y'all the landscape here. The Democrats have two main points right now. Number one is clawing back some of the funding that was lost under the Big Beautiful Bill with Medicaid. For those of you who do not know, the Big Beautiful Bill cut over $800 billion from Medicaid. The Democrats are trying to get some of that funding back. The other point that the Democrats is making is Congress has always had the power of the purse. But what we have witnessed under the Trump administration is a lot of the money that has been appropriated by Congress being clawed back by this White House, which constitutionally shouldn't even be a thing because Congress has the power of the purse. Those are the two main points the Democrat Party is trying to make. But I don't see Hakeem Jeffries, I don't see Chuck Schumer out on Twitter, out on TikTok, out on the news, anywhere making the case to the American people. Once again, the Democrats are allowing the Republican Party to set the stage in order for them to fail on when they ultimately have the upper hand. The Republican Party is in power. They have Congress, they have the White House, and they have the Supreme Court. They have control of everything. Number two, the Republican Party is basically making the argument of, well, the Democrats only want more money for Medicaid to give to the illegals. Why would you allow them to make such false claims that we all know is false? Why are they not on the airwaves debunking all of this nonsense? Because essentially the Republican Party is saying is this: they want to give the American people health care, and because of that, we're going to shut the government down. And might we add, if the government shuts down, we're going to take away people's jobs in the government. What sense does that make? And the Democrats are not out there communicating their position clearly. And it's why we're going to end up taking the fall for this. Because Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are piss poor communicators.
Here's what's on the radar. On the radar is a mini travel series dropping tea on, things that normally don't get coverage. Child, it's looking like the government might shut down, and if it does shut down, it's going to happen on Wednesday. So here's what you should expect when going through TSA. As a former TSA officer, I worked through a couple shutdowns, and it's not fun at all. Officers are expected to report to work no matter what. This shouldn't immediately affect the traveling public, but if it becomes a long, extended government shutdown, like let's say 2 weeks plus, you can expect longer wait times at TSA. I mean, you have to ask yourself, if you were working somewhere and you weren't getting paid and you were running out of cash, you got to go find money somewhere else, right? A stowaway was found dead in a landing gear on an American Airlines plane. This is actually a really sad story. This is what the police report says. On Sunday, September 28th, shortly after 9 a.m., while performing maintenance on an American Airlines plane that had recently arrived from Europe, a stowaway was located in the landing gear. The subject was pronounced deceased on scene by CMPD's airport division officers. That's actually really sad. If you're in a situation where you are getting into the landing gear of a plane to get away from that situation, it has to be really, really bad. I feel bad for this person. The FAA has said 77% of stowaways that try to do that, they end up getting killed. On a lighter note, CBP is making it easier to make connections. The agency announced remote bag checks. So this means like if you're flying from an international destination and you're coming into America, CBP will be able to remotely check the bags. So that means you do not have to go back and recheck your bags. It's slowly being rolled out, but as soon as it's live nationwide, I will let you know. Make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. Before I get to my last topic, which is crazy, this episode of On the Radar is sponsored by Born Bougie by Robert E. Blackman. First of all, I absolutely love the name because I'm bougie at heart. That's not a secret. And it smells so good. If you're looking for some holiday favors, this will be good. And because you could take these through TSA. Do you know you could take candles through TSA? Make sure you order your candle. I'll make sure to link it here. Imagine checking out of your hotel, going home, had a fantastic trip, and get hit with a $500 bill. Let me tell you what these hotels are doing secretly. So for non-smoking hotels, there's this new smoke detector called Rest, and basically it detects smoke in a hotel room. The issue is hotel guests are claiming that they're being billed for smoke when they don't smoke. Hotels who are billing this smoke fee are not letting up because they're using this system and they're saying that they trust the system more than what people are saying. This can be something as simple as you opening up your hotel door, some smoke comes in and that sensor picks it up and they blame it on you. I'm not telling you what to do, but when you book your hotel, you should call them and see if they use this system called Rest. That's it for now, child. See you on the next episode.
Good afternoon. Today is Monday, September 29th, and if you didn't know, us Americans are about 30 minutes away from another government shutdown. All right, so that is a bit of an over-exaggeration. We really have less than 48 hours. Less than 48 hours away from us facing a possible government shutdown over what you may ask? Federal funding. It's always about our money. They're arguing about who gets to spend what. I'm going to do my best to keep this explanation as short and simple as possible. Okay, so for the Affordable Care Act, right, there were enhancements that were introduced by the Democrats in 2021, right? These enhancements were tax credits, and these tax credits are set to expire at the end of this year. Now, see, the Republicans, they want a new income limit, right? So they want new income limits on who receives government-funded aid. And they state that these kind of conversations about extensions, remember the Democrats are asking for an extension, these kind of conversations on extension should only take place after the Republicans are successful in getting this stopgap bill passed, which would keep the government funding, right, through late November. So Republicans want to pass a 7-week stopgap bill, right, before cutting any deals. But the Democrats are stating that they need billions in healthcare funding before they sign a fuck thing. And now Trump is set to meet with the Democrats this afternoon in what he calls giving them the opportunity to commit common sense and vote in favor for the Republicans. If both parties are unable to come to an agreement, if they're unable to come to a resolution, we should all be expecting this government shutdown on Wednesday, 12 a.m. Okay? Wednesday. So like I said, we got less than 48 hours. So you have one political side that's literally arguing to hold the money up until the end of November before they decide who gets what. So just hold it while they figure out a better way to transfer it to the 1%. And then you have another side that's literally stating we need money for all of the healthcare funding that you guys have been cutting since the beginning of this year. And so until we get that, we're not signing shit. And now because they're arguing over our money, the money that you and I make possible, for it to be allocated towards whatever needs in this government, right? Since they're fighting over our money, if there is in fact a government shutdown on Wednesday, which bill are we all collectively not paying anymore? That's what I want to fucking know. Because after this situation, you understand, with Jimmy and Jimmy Kimmel and his show, and everybody starting to realize that their power is in them being the consumer. It's them having the fucking dollar to spend. That's your power in capitalism. What bill are we not paying? What bill are we not paying? Because I'm about sick and tired of these motherfuckers over here arguing about the money that's coming out of my check, and it's not going towards me, my people, or the people overall. You have one group that's literally saying that we need money for healthcare, and another one that's saying no. Instead, we want you guys to sign this stop gap bill, which stops any type of government spending, and it will keep the money with us all the way up until late November, and then we can discuss, you understand, extensions and where the money goes. Are you fucking serious? So now if Wednesday come and there actually is a federal shutdown, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I'm paying my taxes. I don't think I'm paying my taxes. I'm literally trying to figure out what bill I'm not paying. I'm so dead ass. So like, y'all let me know, what bill are we not paying? What insurance? What is it? Is it a mortgage? Is it, are we not doing federal taxes anymore? To be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards that because I'm tired of y'all playing with my money anyway. So y'all let me know.
We are about a day away from a government shutdown, and that is not good. But I fully endorse the Republicans shutting the government down. Because what I do know is that Republicans cannot govern. They cannot lead. Because they lie. And at some point, the lies catch up with you. And, you know, that's what's been happening. The lies are catching up. Whether it is them getting slack from their constituents or having to lie on live TV and then being fact-checked, or over-talking commentators because they don't want to actually face the facts. That is what's been happening. They have one job to do. That is to pass a budget. And Speaker Mike Johnson said, y'all just go home. Take a break. You know, it doesn't matter that you just came back from break. Go ahead and take a break. We are not going to vote. So, yeah, that's not good. But also, he's doing that because he doesn't want to have to swear in the new representative from Arizona. Because that would be number 218. That would require the release of the files. The files that they don't want released. The files that get me flagged every time I mention them in my videos. Yeah, those files. So they're on recess. With no budget passed. And no ability to swear in the new representative. And y'all, this is horrible. This is not good. There are tens of thousands of federal workers who will be furloughed. They will not get paid. And depending on how long the shutdown lasts, there will be many more people who will be required to work. And they'll have a delay in their pay. Because we don't have a plan to spend the money. Y'all have to think about the federal government just like you do your household. If you earn $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, you know how much your take-home pay is every single month, every pay period. So if you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, then you know what bills you're going to pay on the 1st and then what bills are going to be paid on the 15th. You've got a list of bills that need to be paid with the money that you are receiving. The federal government is the same way, but you've got to allocate the money so that it can be spent on those bills. That's why when I say stuff like most Americans are a $200 emergency away from not being able to make it, that is because the money has not been allocated for that emergency. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Most Americans don't have the ability to run a deficit like the U.S. government. It's horrible. And I know you guys get tired of me saying rice and beans is a complete protein, but it really is. And if nothing else, you will be able to feed yourself if you have a family. Rice and beans. There's tons of creators who make recipes. I've done several recipes the way that I make my beans. I've done white beans and black beans and red beans. I've done several different things, and you can just try it. And what I fear is not just that the government will shut down, but this administration has signaled is that they will use this as a way to terminate employees, to do like a second round of Doge cuts. Which means that once again, our unemployment numbers will be going through the roof. Inflation is not coming down. The Fed cut interest rates earlier this month, but mortgage rates didn't come down. People aren't buying our bonds. Countries are cashing in the bonds that they currently have for the US dollar. The US dollar is losing its value. There is a lot going on. And it is overwhelming and overstimulating, and it does all of the things to my anxiety. I get it. You're not wrong to feel the way you feel. You are not wrong to try to do what you can to prepare. Because even if you don't work for the federal government, there are thousands of businesses that have had to close. Mom and pop shops, people that are self-employed that can no longer afford to import the goods that they were selling because of the tariffs. And for this administration to say, yeah, we're going to help the farmers out. We're going to use some of that tariff money we've been collecting. Remember, the reason that he sold on tariffs was that it was going to help us pay down the deficit. So now you want to pay take the taxpayer dollars, because consumers actually pay the tariffs. You want to take the taxpayer dollars for the increased price that we have been paying for goods to now turn around and give to the same farmers that you are causing to go bankrupt because of the tariffs. It's illogical. It is nonsensical. It is devastating. And if you have not started, please start storing some stuff. Get you some pantry staple items, rice, beans, canned vegetables, canned fruits. Get you some grains if you don't do beans. Get you some quinoa or some lentils. Get something so that you will be able to sustain yourself. Because this will be a fight. We are literally living through history. There will be books written about it. And one day you will tell your children, your grandchildren, maybe your great-grandchildren what you did. What you did in the face of an authoritarian government. What you did when the United States of America was facing fascism. How did you survive? Because that's the key. You've got to be able to survive. Not just survive a government shutdown, but survive what we are facing. And I wish I had something nice to say. I wish I could tell you that it would be easy. I wish I could say, you can do it, and you can. But it will be at great cost. It will not be easy. But nothing that is worth it is. If you have ever trained in the gym, set out to lose weight, if you have ever started a business, if you have ever committed to read your Bible or read something that is informational, or to do anything, develop a skill, try to maintain a habit, you understand there are plenty of times that you don't want to. There are plenty of times when the sacrifice seems like it is too much, but it is worth it. And so are you. You are worth surviving. You are worth getting through this. So do what you can to prepare.
The U.S. government is going to be shutting down in about 24 hours, and that is according to Vice President J.D. Vance. And there are 5 major impacts that this is going to have on our country. So first is our court system and the massive legal delays that we're going to experience for every day that our government is shut down. Specifically, immigration court. Most immigration court staff will be furloughed, so hearings for asylum, deportation, and green card cases will be postponed, which, if you've been following the news in the past few months, that is a lot of cases. Second is all federal workers are either going to be furloughed or unpaid. This means hundreds of thousands of federal employees will be sent home without pay, and President Trump already said that a lot of these employees will be permanently fired. Now, essential workers like TSA and Border Patrol will be forced to continue working, but won't be able to collect a paycheck until after the government shutdown ends. Now, this leads to the next major effect, which is air travel disruption. The big thing here is the FAA will halt all training and hiring for air traffic controllers. This is going to result in a TSA staffing shortage because some of them are going to quit because they're not getting a paycheck, and then they can't hire new employees. So the longer this government shutdown lasts, the more delays we'll see at airports. Now, the fourth major effect is the closure of national parks and federally funded museums. Several national parks, national monuments, and federally funded museums will be forced to shut down because well, they won't have any workers. Now, in recent government shutdowns, some national parks actually stayed open, but they saw a massive increase in overflow trash and pollution because nobody was there to pick it up. And coming in at number 5, which might be number 1 in importance, and that is an overall economic decline of the United States. Now, there's so many ways that this affects the U.S. economy. I would not be able to list them all in this short video. One being that, federal contractors and small businesses that rely on government work won't be able to get paid. But they estimate that for every 1 week that the US government is shut down, the economy loses $1 billion. So to everyone who's going to be affected by this government shutdown, which is pretty much all of us, hang in there. And my question to you is, do you think this government shutdown was avoidable?
So what do you think? Are people overreacting? Or is the panic totally justified? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more wild internet reactions just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.